How is everyone doing tonight?
Doing great.
Awesome. Got to shake a few hands and say hi to a few people that were here early. And if you weren't early, I missed you. I'm sorry. But I'm glad you're here regardless. So I know looks like we got Jackie and Tim in the back there. If anyone has an offering that they would like to give tonight, just hold it up and they will be glad to wait on you and serve you tonight. And I don't think there's anything like super brand new that you guys don't know about. However, I will say that the Christmas banquet is coming up this next week. So it'll be next Monday and Tuesday, not Sunday night and Monday night, Monday and Tuesday. For those that have been around here a lot, that's a change. So sometimes I know what it's like to get in a routine. And so remember, if you signed up for the first night, that's Monday night. And the second night's Tuesday night, okay? Don't miss it. Don't show up Sunday night because we won't be there. But I will mention this, both nights are full. So we are full to capacity. So if there is someone that contacts Savannah that needs a spot, she is going to have to say, I'm sorry. But if you know that you cannot go, please let us know. Call the office, okay? If you don't have her number, you can also call Savannah. You can call me, text her, whatever. Pastor Larry, it doesn't matter who you get a hold of. Just get a hold of us and let us know if there's someone that would like to come that we might be able to fill your spot. So we would all appreciate that. So I think that's all the house cleaning. So we are in a brand new series because it's Christmas, right? Yeah. It's Christmas. I mean, everything needs to be just right. After all, it's Christmas, right? I mean, Christmas decorations got to be up before Thanksgiving. I failed that one. Confession, mine aren't up yet. I still have pumpkins on my front porch. I know. I knew I was going to hear it from that row right there. But you know, the Christmas decorations have got to be up. Christmas lights on the house. If they aren't up now, you're a loser. Kids' school programs, you can't miss it. Christmas cookies, you got to make them. Christmas presents, got to have them for everyone. Christmas cards are better than me in the mail. They're going to be late by now. I don't do Christmas cards, sorry. Everything has to be perfect because why? It's Christmas. And that's the way we are. The trees, you see all the, Christmas just kind of, well, I think one Sunday morning I used the word vomit. It's probably not the best choice of words. Okay, Christmas blew up at Family Church, right? It all has to be perfect because it's Christmas. Or does it? Many of you have already seen, I know, the movie, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And it's a super great reminder that not everything has to be perfect. And even in the imperfection, if we can open up our hearts, we can find something even more meaningful than our cookie cutter perfection we feel like we need to have. We can find the beauty in imperfection. And we can find it in the best Christmas story ever, which is the title of our new series that we're going to start. Much like the movie, we're going to look at a story that many of us have heard for years, at least once a year. In this story, we will find, though we have tried to perfect it in our minds, a very imperfect story. A messy story. A story that some parts are sad. A story that some parts are dysfunctional. A story that some parts are full of things that are not fair or just. But a story that has the most beauty that is beyond comprehension. We're going to examine the intricacies of the best story ever. And in doing so, the best Christmas story ever, sorry. And in doing so, maybe find out a little more meaning on how a story can be far from perfect, yet the most beautiful story the world has ever known. The best Christmas story ever. Now, just to clarify, we're not talking about Santa Claus and the Night Before Christmas. We're not talking about the story of Frosty the Snowman, sorry. Not talking about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or the Grinch, even though you're going to find Grinchiness around here a lot. Not even It's a Wonderful Life. Though, I will say, that story might have a lot of comparisons in the fact that George Bailey is about to lose it all, only to find out through all of his hopes and dreams and failures, he's found what matters the most in life: love and family. That's a good story. But it's not that story we're going to talk about. Instead, I want to talk about a story that is truth so far from perfection. But in our minds, we have seen this story so many times, it has become the perfect little scene in our heads. But was it? That will be the course of our study the next few weeks as we unfold in some depth the best Christmas story ever. And it's kind of funny because as we look in the book of Matthew chapter 1, actually, interestingly enough, if I can spit the words out, Matthew starts out with the nativity story by listing the lineage of Jesus. Some of us, even at first glance, can look at the line of Jesus and think, wow, Jesus came from a line of heroes and important people, right? Or did he? Let's look. We're going to start in Matthew chapter 1. This is the part that you have to dust off of the Christmas story, because this is the part that everybody skips over because it's boring. But it's actually the part we're going to spend the majority, if not all, our time at tonight. And you're going to say, oh my gosh, this is going to be boring. I hope you won't find this boring. I don't think you will find this boring. But we're going to start by reading it first, very quickly. Ephesians chapter 1, verse 1, an account of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham fathered Isaac. Isaac fathered Jacob. Jacob fathered Judah and his brothers. Judah fathered Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Aram. Aram fathered Aminadab. Aminadab fathered Nahshon. I'm going to take my time on these so I will try not to butcher them. Nahshon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz by Rahab. Boaz fathered Obed by Ruth. Obed fathered Jesse, and Jesse fathered King David. David fathered Solomon by Uriah's wife. Solomon fathered Rehoboam. Rehoboam fathered Abijah. Abijah fathered Asa. Asa fathered Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat fathered Joram. Joram fathered Uzziah. Uzziah fathered Jotham. Jotham fathered Ahaz. Ahaz fathered Hezekiah. Hezekiah fathered Manasseh. Manasseh fathered Amon. Amon fathered Josiah. And Josiah fathered Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the exile to Babylon. I remember the exile to Babylon and King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? If you don't remember King Nebuchadnezzar from King Nebuchadnezzar, think VeggieTales. Helps. Do I have VeggieTales generations in here? Okay, all right. After the exile to Babylon, Jeconiah fathered Shealtiel. Shealtiel fathered Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel fathered Abiud. Abiud fathered Eliakim. Eliakim fathered Azor. Azor fathered Zadok. My glasses wanted to see the E before the I, or E right after the I instead of after the L, sorry. And I knew that wasn't right. Azor fathered Zadok. Zadok fathered Achim. Achim fathered Eliud. Eliud fathered Eliezer. Why is it the EL words that I have a problem with? Eleazar fathered Mathan. Mathan fathered Jacob, and Jacob fathered Joseph, the husband of Mary, who gave birth to Jesus, who was called the Messiah. So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations. And from David until the exile to Babylon, 14 generations. And from the exile to Babylon until the Messiah, how many? 14. 14 generations, just seeing if you were still with me and hadn't fallen asleep yet. So we're going to look at this list, because if we look at this list identified here, so many listed here have very detailed stories, even chapters and books written after them. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Boaz, Jesse, King David, Solomon. These guys were good guys, right? Right? Abraham. In the story of Abraham, we can actually find the good, the bad, and the ugly. Abraham, the good, left his hometown in search of the promised land, obeyed God, left his hometown, and became the father of many nations. That sounds really awesome, doesn't it? And I mean, since the day of Moses, even I believe to this very day, the Jewish people are proud to call themselves children of Abraham. However, the bad. Abraham took his nephew Lot, which God said not to take any. He said, separate yourself from his family. And we have trouble in the Mideast from that very day because of that situation and disobedience. The bad, he got impatient with God several different times. And the ugly, he slept with his wife's servant, lied about his wife being his sister twice, just to name a few. Does that sound like your good, perfect guy? Yes? No? No. Yet it does not negate the fact that Abraham is the father of many nations. The good, the bad, the ugly. Isaac was offered up as a sacrifice to God, but spared. He went on to live a life of faith in God. However, his parenting skills from both him and Rebekah lacked luster, favoring different sons and entering into competition with one another over those sons. Jacob was born to Isaac, fueled by his mother, lived a life of trickery and deception, became the victim of deceit as well from his father-in-law, but still went on to become the patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay. We have trouble in River City right here, so hang on just a second, folks. I knew my introduction was not right. And I did a lot of work on my computer, and obviously it did not sync up to my iPad. And all of a sudden I was like, there's just a whole list of names and nothing underneath them. And I'm like, I'm not going to remember this. We're going to have to do something different. But fortunately, I actually started on week 2, and I have all that information still there the way it should be. So I'm going to scroll down here. Praise the Lord. It's there. So Jacob is far from perfect as well, wouldn't you say? Are you seeing a pattern of dysfunction?
Sounds like the church.
You're getting ahead of us just a little bit. Judah participated in selling of his own brother Joseph into slavery, slept with his daughter-in-law, pretending to be a prostitute, impregnating her. When he found out she was with child, proceeded to have her killed until he found out it was his child she was carrying, then admitted it was his fault. Sound perfect? And yet, a tribe is named after this very person. Perez, say it like it is, a bastard child from said events we just uncovered in said story of Judah. The very name does mean breach or breakthrough because he was a twin miraculously born first, even though his twin's brother's hand emerges first from the womb, known only because of a scarlet thread that was tied to his wrist during emergence. Hezron has no significance that I could find beyond the lineage that we will follow here, as is recorded in the book of Matthew. Aram, known as Ram in the Old Testament, again, no significance there other than lineage. Aminadab, Same Nashon was a sorcerer that died in the wilderness, and yet we find him in the line of the Messiah. Salmon married Rahab, the Canaanite harlot, and from that marriage was conceived Boaz. How many remember the story of Boaz? Boaz was the kinsman redeemer to Ruth, and out of that union they bore Obed, who was from Boaz and Ruth's union, so being the son of Boaz. The son of Obed was Jesse, and Jesse was just about to overlook the last son, the runt of the litter, the red-haired kid out tending sheep that God would choose as a man after his own heart, King David. David had a very significant man, or was a very significant man in the lineage of Jesus. He was also a murderer, an adulterer, a man of blood, and a man of battle. So much so that after consoling the Lord, or seeking from him the role of building the temple, he was excluded from that task. Although the Lord let him wear the ephod, a priestly garment, a huge shadow of what was to come, Jesus being both our king and our high priest. We're going to get into more of that later. To David was born a son of many, but a son, Solomon. Solomon, as many of you probably know, was the wisest and richest man on earth to date. Solomon also wrote the book of what? Song of Solomon. What else? Proverbs, of which Solomon, when asked of anything from the Lord, what was his answer? Wisdom, right? And so therefore was granted not only wisdom, but riches as well. However, Solomon also wrote the book of Ecclesiastes and ended his life full of confusion and doing what was displeasing to the Lord, even after all of those good things that we just listed. To Solomon was born Rehoboam. Rehoboam rejected the advice from his older advisors and listened to the advice of his younger advisors, resulting in a rebellion that divided the kingdom for the rest of the reign of kings as we know it into two parts, Israel and Judah. Abijah was born to Rehoboam, who also did evil in the sight of the Lord, even allowing his mother to erect Asherah poles to promote Asherah worship, which was basically idol worship. To Abijah was born Asa, and Asa, even despite the evil that his father did, brought peace and returned to the ways of his forefather David. To Asa was born Jehoshaphat, who started out strong and his heart remained very strong, serving the Lord with all of his might. However, in his attempts to align with the kings of Israel who were evil, he never quite won the people over to serve the Lord fully. His reign ended weak after alliances with both Ahab and Ahaziah, and never convinced the people to quit worshiping idols and Baal. Joram became king, killed all of his brothers, and married the daughter of evil Ahab, who was the king of Israel. Uzziah was born to Joram, and it's also pronounced a different way. I want to say, I didn't put it in my notes, but I want to say it's Jerome. I can't remember, but there's two pronunciations. But anyway, just a little trivia there. But anyway, to Joram was born Uzziah. Uzziah turned the tide and served the Lord, turning the nation around as God blessed him abundantly, only to allow pride to be his ultimate downfall in the end, as the Lord struck him with leprosy, dying 12 years later, completely alone. Now again, This is the lineage of Jesus. These are all in kingly lines of Judah, the tribe of Judah. Jotham, who was the son of Uzziah, walked steadfastly with the Lord and accomplished much for the Lord, though the people still followed corrupt practices of idol worship. Ahaz did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, worshiped pagan gods, and turned to them, leading to the total downfall of Judah. Hezekiah, which was Ahaz's son, was the first king since David to honor the Lord and purge Judah from all evil. His fervent prayers and powerful supplication of faith, pleading deliverance, added years to his life and deliverance to Judah. However, that was very fleeting with the son born to Hezekiah, Manasseh, who led Judah back into evil and idolatry. Amon was born to Manasseh, who is most remembered for, are you ready for this? His idolatrous practices that led to a revolt against him and his assassination. Josiah was born to Amon, and due to Amon's short-lived lifetime as a king, because of his assassination, Josiah actually became king at 8 years old. I remember the story of Josiah. I remember that from Sunday school back then. Josiah found the book of the law and started cleaning house in Judah, only to be followed by his son Jeconiah, who reigned a whopping 3 months before the nation of Judah was taken into exile to Babylon. And I believe, I didn't study this part out because obviously I was just focusing on the tribe of Judah for my studies, but not only Judah, but all of Israel, I think, entered into exile in Babylon. Shealtiel, which was Jeconiah's son, lived in Babylon in exile, and we don't know much more about him other than that. And Zerubbabel was born to Shealtiel, who was appointed governor over Judah by King Nebuchadnezzar and sent back to Jerusalem to rebuild God's temple. Abiad, son of Zerubbabel, Eliakim, son of Abiad, Azar, son of whatever that name was, Eliakim, Zadok, son of Azor, Achim, son of Zadok, Eliud, son of Achim, Eleazar, son of Eliud, Mathan, son of Eleazar, all have completely nothing written about them, except for the fact that they are included in the line and the lineage that would eventually lead to the coming of the Messiah. To Mathan was born Jacob, who was son of Mathan and the father of Joseph, Joseph being the stepfather to Jesus. Now, I spent a lot of time going into a lot of details and actually did a lot of studying on all of these guys, trying to summarize just in a few short minutes, well, or not so short, I think 12 to be exact. So looking at the lives of these guys in some detail, was the line of Jesus this nice little bow of perfection? No. Was there a bit of dysfunction? Yeah, a lot. Let me take a time out and ask you, looking back in your family tree. He had to go there. How about your family tree? I'm not asking for a show of hands, so please don't do that. Is there any dysfunction in your family tree? Looking back through the generations, now you can say, now, Pastor Kevin, we've done some good. Well, look here, there's been some good done by some of these folks. Abraham was the father of many nations. King David, we all know King David. But did you know him as an adulterer, a murderer, and a bloodthirsty killer? Because he was all those things. But yet he was also a man after God's own heart. Do you see the pattern here? That amongst all of the dysfunction, there still is good. This is a significant reminder of God's faithfulness to his promises. Through the wilderness, through famine, through war, through disobedience, through sickness, God was on the move. God had a plan that could not be shaken that started way back in the Garden of Eden. So what's the takeaway and the reminder of all of this? God is faithful to his promises. God is faithful to his promises. It doesn't matter how much dysfunction you or I or any one of our family trees have. That does not disqualify you, nor does it decertify you from the plan and the purpose that God has for your life. But Pastor Kevin, you don't know what I've done in my past. You don't know what I put up with. You don't know the baggage that I have. We just threw it through a really long list of a lot of baggage. And there's a whole host of people that we know practically nothing about. Going through in detail what I've went through with these, don't you think they probably had a few problems of their own that are not recorded in the Bible? I'd venture to say so. I mean, dysfunction is the new norm, right? It's in all of our families. It's in all of us. Because no human being is ever perfect. We are a byproduct of both the failures and the successes of the legacy left behind in all of our lives. And their lives were no different. But through it all, God is this master chess player that knows how to take imperfect, messy, downright ugly people and make something good, even in the midst. I can't help but see, as I've studied the Old Testament, I've always known this or saw this pattern of this ping pong back and forth through the nation of Israel. One you see good, the other right bad. The other one good, the other bad. And some of these guys were so bad that it just surprises me that the next son could be so good. How does that happen? There's only one way, and that's God. You see, it doesn't matter how much dysfunction you think you have or the family that you came from, because God is still God, and God is faithful to his promises. It's also a reminder that Jesus came from a long lineage of some very dysfunctional families. Drunks, adulterers, liars, thieves, kings. Some of them noble, some of them crooked. And yet God used all of them to carry the lineage of the greatest we could have ever asked for, the Messiah. Emmanuel, God with us. Guys, God is not scared of your mess. God is the one that takes our mess and turns it into his masterpiece. And he does that not based on your skills or your lack thereof. He does that upon his goodness that is poured out in each of our lives. Think of yourself as simply a vessel. And the reason I believe that we can see one king or one father, a complete, total mess, choosing evil over God, and an about face of another is one thing: a choice. If you choose to say, God, use me, the ironic thing is he will. He will take all of your messes and turn them into a masterpiece the only way that he can. If this is the line, the lineage, the family tree of the greatest man to ever walk on planet Earth, what do we expect from ours? Should we expect any more? I'd venture to say no. God can take your mess and turn it into his masterpiece. So next week, we're going to look at a little bit more dysfunction before we look into some other things in end of week 2, beginning of week 3. But to close this out, Lindsay, do you want to come on up here? I want to challenge you 2 things. One thing, this Christmas, instead of focusing on making everything perfect, why don't we focus on people? Because isn't that the most valuable treasure that we ever have? I was thinking back as I was, truthfully making a drive from Wyoming to Missouri late in the evening, about the moments that I wish I could take back or live again with my mom, with my dad. And the truth of the matter is I can't. And if you have loved ones that have gone on to be with Jesus, you can't either. But what we can do is enjoy the here and the now. And to take time to look around at all the people that we have right in front of us. Not even just our family, but our friends, our church members. You see, it's fun to have church Christmas banquets and movie nights, and all of that's fun. There's nothing wrong with fun. But more importantly, it builds relationships. So although Pastor Larry likes as a church to have fun, don't you think it goes deeper than that? It's very calculated. Events are created not just for fun. I like fun. We all do. But it's about building relationships. Because it's at Christmas banquets that we have the opportunity to sit across from another fellow believer who we can be encouraged by, who we can get to know, who we can build a relationship with, who can be there when sometimes the chips are down, when things aren't so fun. That we have someone that we can lean on, someone that we can call, someone that will stand by us, someone that will check in on you when you need it the most. Did you know your pastor can't be all of that to every person? So it goes a little deeper than just a fun Christmas banquet where we get to eat fried chicken and brisket. Whew, that sounds good. But even over fried chicken and brisket, sitting across from someone that I can build a relationship, priceless. It's the people that matter most. If I never put up one Christmas decoration, I'm going to be okay with it, even if you aren't. But you can guarantee I'm going to be there when my family sits around that Christmas tree, because I will get that up before Christmas. And spend time with my kids and my grandkids, because those are the memories that last a lifetime. And those are the memories that go beyond my lifetime as I create a legacy for my kids and my grandkids. And you do too. Secondly, which has nothing to do with anything that I talked about tonight, is bring pencil and paper every time you come and get with God, or something to write with. Because I had something this morning during staff prayer that I was like, I'm going to teach on this, and I'm going to announce it tonight, even though it's going to beat me to the punchline, because I really need them to simmer on this and just get the revelation to it. And I sat down there and I'm like, I cannot remember at all what that stinking thing was. So instead of sharing that awesome thought that I wanted you to just, simmer on and meditate on and get the revelation of, I'm going to give you the words of wisdom. Bring a pen and paper when you get with God. I learned that lesson this morning. Come on up. We're going to worship as we have been worshiping together as a family as we close out tonight. Would you pray with me? Father God, tonight we do just take this opportunity to lift up the name that we celebrate the most this time of year, the name of Jesus. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. And it's at that moment that we celebrate through this month of December. And that is the one that we lift up and worship tonight. That through all of our mistakes, past, present, and the ones we'll in the future, all of our shortcomings, all of our dysfunctions, that God, you love us. And you still became flesh to save us, to redeem us. And for that, we truly worship you in this place tonight.